So, Vietnam to crack down on anonymous social media accounts. Social media users in Vietnam must soon verify their identities in what the government says is a bid to crack down on online scams. Unverified accounts on both local and foreign social media platforms such as Facebook must comply with the new regulations. It's unclear how the new measures, expected by end of 2023, will be enforced. Both individuals and organizations must comply with the new rules. And again, this happens. We get normally at least one story like this every week for the most part, but there's always one country that's like, we're going to deal with this problem by verifying everyone's identities on the internet. And this presents brand new issues as well because now you have to secure people's identification. There's also privacy risks there as well because now you have to give your ID up to companies like Facebook, who I'm sure are going to handle that information very safely and privately in typical Facebook fashion. But yeah, like this whole concept of identifying everyone on the internet is just not good at all from a privacy perspective. And that's what I'm most concerned about.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
But yeah, like this whole concept of identifying everyone on the internet is just not good at all from a privacy perspective. And that's what I'm most concerned about. This is going to be a hot take in the privacy community. I think anonymity on the internet is actually terrible. Not from a privacy perspective, from like a human perspective. I feel like anonymity allows people to say things without consequences, do things that it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, anonymity allows you to be maybe more of an authentic, organic self that you might not otherwise get to express in the real world. Like you're not going to say some things in person that you're going to say on the internet, which I think in itself is kind of a beautiful thing, but that's also what makes the internet generally a very toxic place because people can say and do things without as many consequences and they're all behind a keyboard, it's all digital. And so I think it really introduces this whole concept of like, well, there are genuine downsides to anonymity on the internet. And I do like to envision an internet where like you have a central identity. This is not a privacy discussion at this point because I'm completely against this from a privacy perspective. But like, what if everyone just had a central identity on the internet? They can only have one account for everything, and everything was directly tied to you. I think the internet would be a much better place.
I think there could be some platforms that could work for sure. Um, it's definitely a double-edged sword, like you said, because on the one hand, people abuse anonymity to post whatever they want online, right? And post hateful content, that kind type of thing. But there's also people who need to get a message out, and their problem isn't the message that they're trying to send. They might be trying to send a good message. Their problem is who they are and hiding their identity behind an anonymous profile is the only way that they'd be able to spread that message because they'd otherwise be attacked for who they are rather than what they're saying. So it's a tricky problem for sure, which
Yeah,
obviously has no clear answers.
no, I agree. It's a good point, because yes, this is what we talk about. Like, if you're a whistleblower, you got to have an outlet to be able to like privately get your message out there. I just like to think like, what would Reddit be like if everyone who left a comment on Reddit, it was them? Like it was their first and last name. Your friends can go and look at your Reddit account and see the stuff you say and do to people. Like, I think people would be a lot less like toxic
Hmm.
on Reddit
Yeah,
if that was the case.
I think in like a perfect world, somebody would be able to make a community where they could require that as the community manager if they wanted that, because for a lot of discussions that is genuinely helpful. Um, but then you'd still have the option elsewhere to host anonymous content if you wanted to, or host like a standard Reddit form. Um,
Yeah.
for example, the issue with that is it's more of how you do that privately, obviously, because who's
Yeah.
going to be verifying all those identities? And I think that's the reason that this hasn't been actually implemented anywhere in practice.
Yeah, and it's a bummer. Like, it's a place where security and privacy become the bottleneck of a really cool concept becoming a reality.
Hmm.
because I probably wouldn't join it, but it would be a really cool experiment to see what a community online would look like with real identified people. But theoretically, let's say it was not privacy invasive. Everything you posted was on your own dime, right? Like you post it. There's no data collection outside of what you post. Let's say this was like IRL verified. Let's say you have to set up, like I set up an office outside my house. People come here in person. I look at their ID. I give them a YubiKey that gives them access to their account, that gives them a permanent name attached to their YubiKey. And that's the only way they can log into that account. They can't change their name. They can't change anything. It doesn't include an age. It just has a first and last name. And we can also hook it up with like mutual friends. You have to bring 2 friends along. So like it's a party thing. So like no matter what, you have some kind of like pressure, social pressure to like have to be a somewhat decent human being. It's dystopian. It's super dystopian. Like I know it's dystopian. I just think it's an interesting thought experiment to see what that would look like. And I think it demonstrates just the bad side of anonymity on the internet, which overall I think is a net good.
Hmm.
But yeah.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I am shocked. Shocked! Well, not that shocked.